Stop. Before you scroll past this, before you tell yourself, this is just another message telling you to stay strong and keep the faith and trust the process. I need you to hear something that no one has said to you yet. You already made it through. This is not one more message telling you to hold on through another hard season. This is a message for the one who already survived it. The one who is still standing, not because it was easy, but because you refused to let go of God even when God felt like a stranger. Congratulations, it's over. And I know what you've been carrying. Don't you dare pretend right now that you haven't. The sleepless nights, the 3 a.m. ceiling stares when the questions wouldn't stop. The silent crying, not the loud, dramatic kind, the quiet kind. The kind that happens in the shower so nobody hears you. The kind where your whole body shakes but you don't make a sound. Because you've been strong for everyone else so long, you've forgotten you're allowed to break. You sat at your kitchen table and held yourself together. You showed up to church and smiled. You answered, "I'm fine," every single time. And every single time, it was a lie. You were not fine. You were surviving. And there is a difference. Here is the shocking truth that heaven has been waiting to tell you. What felt like God being silent was God being surgical. The season that nearly destroyed you was not abandonment. It was architecture. Every night you couldn't sleep, He was laying a foundation. Every tear you cried alone, He was mixing the mortar. Every moment you felt like you were falling apart, you were not being demolished. You were being constructed. Nahum 1-9 declares it plainly. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. Not twice. Not again. Not ever. There were signs this season was ending, and you may have missed them. That moment this week when you went quiet instead of fighting back, when you chose restraint instead of reaction, when you walked away and sat in the discomfort of your own silence, you thought that was weakness. That was warfare. That was the signature heaven was waiting for. What felt like breaking down was actually proof that the construction was almost complete. And before this message ends, I am going to show you the 7 signs that your formation is finished. If this message is reaching you after a long season, nobody fully understood, type, "It's over" in the comments right now. Stay with me, because this is not just encouragement. This is interpretation. You were not being abandoned, beloved. You were being finished. Let me ask you something that nobody has had the courage to ask you. Not your pastor, not your children, not even your closest friend. How long have you been carrying this? Not the pain you talk about in public, not the sanitized version, the real weight. The one that lives in your chest like a stone that never fully dissolves. The one that wakes you up at 3 inches the morning when the house is quiet and there is nothing left to distract you from what you feel. How long have you been standing straight when everything inside you has been crumbling? Because I see you, and more importantly, God sees you, every single inch of what you survived. There is a suffering that never makes it into words. No doctor diagnosed it. No counselor ever named it exactly right. You could not explain it to your family even if you tried, because it was not the kind of pain that has a clean edge. It was diffuse, atmospheric. It lived in your nervous system like a permanent alarm that never found an off switch. Your body was on high alert for so long, it forgot what peace felt like. You functioned. That is what makes this so hard to see from the outside. You got up, you made breakfast, you answered the phone, you sat in the pew, you said "I'm fine" with such practiced ease that eventually even you started to believe the performance. But behind closed doors, behind the smile you wore like armor, you were a house in the middle of a storm, every board holding, every nail strained, every wall shaking, and no one walking past would have known, because the house was still standing. That is not strength, that is endurance. And there is a difference. You kept going not because you felt strong, but because stopping was not an option and there was no one to catch you if you fell. Job understood this. Job 3:26, I have no peace, no quietness, I have no rest, but only turmoil. Job was not a weak man. He was not a faithless man. He was a righteous man, and he still came undone under the weight of what he carried. And yet God watched every moment of it, the suffering no one witnessed, the grief your body carried that your mouth never named, the fatigue that 10 hours of sleep could not touch because it was not in your muscles, it was in your soul. You woke up exhausted because you never truly rested, because rest requires safety, and somewhere along the way, your inner world stopped feeling safe. You know what spiritual loneliness is? It is crying out in the night like the psalmist in Psalm 22:2. I cry out by day, but you do not answer, by night, but I find no rest, and wondering whether heaven had gone quiet, or whether you had simply become too broken to be heard. Did you ever feel that? Be honest. Did you ever kneel by your bed and wonder if your prayers were hitting the ceiling and bouncing back? And the humiliation of it, that is what nobody talks about. Being misunderstood while still trying to love people well. Giving your best to people who never knew what it cost you. Serving with a demolished interior while projecting a composed exterior. Carrying their pain while pretending you had no pain of your own. Paul named it in 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 with devastating precision. We are pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Struck down, but not destroyed. Not crushed, not destroyed, but pressed, perplexed, struck down. That is the part we skip over. That is the part we need to sit inside for a moment. Because Paul is not describing someone who sailed through. He is describing someone who went through it, and somehow, miraculously, was still standing on the other side. That is your testimony. You are not unbroken. You are unbowed. There is a difference, and that difference is everything. Think about a tree that has survived 40 years of storm. The trunk is not smooth, the bark is thick and scarred. The roots you cannot see have gone so deep they reach water that surface roots will never find. The winds that nearly destroyed it are the exact reason it cannot be uprooted now. That is what happened to you. Every season that should have leveled you drove your roots deeper. Every grief that tore at your surface was rebuilding something underneath. Every muscle in your spirit was torn apart and rebuilt, stronger not in spite of the suffering, but because of it. Send this right now to someone who has been carrying pain quietly. Some people need language for what they survived. And now, the strangest part of all of this. The worst part of the season was not the pain. It was not knowing what the pain meant. That is what nearly broke you. Not the trial itself, but the silence around it. The absence of interpretation. The unanswered why. In the next part, we are going to uncover exactly what heaven was building inside you while you thought you were only surviving. Because the suffering was real, but it was never random. Can I ask you something honest? When you were in the middle of it, when the nights were longest, when the silence from heaven felt like a closed door, when you checked your prayer list and nothing had moved, did you ever wonder if God had simply stopped caring? Be honest. Because a lot of people say no, but their crying says yes. Here is what nobody told you. Here is what religion kept quiet. What well-meaning friends couldn't explain. What even your own heart was too afraid to consider. God was not absent. God was underground. Think about a construction site in Manhattan. You've seen them. You walk past, and for the first 6, 8, 12 months, nothing. Just barriers, noise, dirt, a deep hole in the ground. People walk by and think nothing is happening. But every single day, beneath the surface, crews are pouring concrete foundations that go 40, 50 feet deep. Nobody applauds the foundation. Nobody posts pictures of it. But without it, the skyscraper doesn't stand. It collapses under its own weight. That was your season, beloved. God was not building something you could see. He was building something that would hold. Romans 8:28 says it plainly. All things work together for good to those who love God, to those called according to his purpose. All things, not the pleasant things, not the comfortable things. All things. The betrayal, the diagnosis, the loss, the silence. All of it working, all of it building. Even when it looked like nothing was moving, something was happening 40 feet underground where no human eye could see. Now I need you to hear the 4 things God was doing underneath the surface of your suffering. Because when you see this, really see it, it is going to change the way you interpret every hard season you have ever lived. The first thing God was building was endurance that can no longer be shaken. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy when you face trials, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Let it finish its work. That means the endurance God was building in you was not theoretical. It was not the kind you read about in a Sunday morning sermon and say amen to and forget by Monday. This was the kind forged in real fire, in real loss, in real nights when you were not sure you could get up again. And here is what is different about you now. You are not just told that God is faithful. You know it. You have the scars that prove it. That is not weakness, that is weaponry. The second thing God was doing was purifying your attachments. This is the one that stings. Some of the people who walked out of your life this season, you asked God why. You begged him to restore what was lost. But what if I told you that some of those doors God closed with his own hand? Not because he was punishing you, but because he could see what you were holding on to more tightly than you were holding on to him. Joseph loved his father deeply, but God allowed Joseph to be separated from everything familiar, his family, his homeland, his comfort, his very name, because the palace required a man whose identity was rooted in God alone, not in father, not in family, not in what anyone thought of him. God strips the scaffolding when the building is strong enough to stand on its own. What felt like abandonment was God removing everything you had leaned on so you could discover that you were still standing. The third thing God was doing was revealing who people really were. You didn't lose fake friends. You gained real clarity. There is a difference. The pressure of your season squeezed every relationship in your life, and what came out was truth. Some people showed you love you never expected. Others showed you something you needed to see, but had been too close to notice. That was not cruelty. That was mercy. God was protecting your next season from the people who would have sabotaged it. And the fourth thing, the deepest thing, God was restructuring your inner foundation. Think about the chrysalis. The caterpillar does not just grow wings inside that shell. The caterpillar dissolves, almost completely. What happens inside that cocoon is not transformation, it is liquefaction. The old form has to cease to exist before the new life can emerge. You felt that dissolution, didn't you? That season when you could not recognize yourself, when the old version of you, the one that needed approval, the one that performed for love, the one that survived on striving, started breaking down. That was not a breakdown, that was a becoming. Winter roots prepare for spring fruit. What you planted in frozen ground, in dark silence, in tears nobody witnessed it, is still alive. It did not die. It went deep. And deep roots do not get uprooted when the wind comes. If you can feel that something in you is simply not who it used to be, even before your circumstances have fully changed, type this right now. I'm not the same, because you are not. And that is the evidence the season completed its work. The season did not just wound you, it rewired you. And now that you know what was being built, the question that should be rising in your spirit right now is this: How do you know the building phase is truly complete? There are signs, unmistakable signs, and I am going to show you every single one. I promised you something before we went deeper. I told you there were signs, specific, unmistakable, spiritual checkpoints that prove the hard season is not continuing, it is concluding. And now I'm going to show them to you, all 7. Don't just listen, search yourself, because for many of you, what I'm about to name will feel less like a revelation and more like a mirror. Sign number 1. You feel a strange inner quiet, not because life got easier, not because the problems disappeared, but because panic no longer owns you. There used to be a voice inside you that fired the moment something went wrong, a voice that said, "This is the end. You can't handle this. It's all falling apart." That voice has gotten quieter, and you noticed it. You didn't know what to call it, but you noticed it. Philippians 4:7 calls it the peace that surpasses all understanding. And here's what that scripture doesn't say. It doesn't say the peace comes when circumstances improve. It says it guards your heart, meaning it arrives before the storm is over. That quiet you're feeling? That is not emptiness. That is God standing guard at the door of your mind. Sign number 2. Some relationships have started falling away naturally. No explosion, no dramatic confrontation. They just drifted. And what shocked you is that you didn't chase them. The old you would have called, apologized, and twisted yourself into something smaller just to keep the peace. But something in you knew this connection belonged to who I was, not who I'm becoming. Proverbs 13:20 says, "Walk with the wise and become wise." But here's the other side of that truth. When you rise in wisdom, not everyone can walk at your new altitude. Some people aren't being removed from your life as punishment. They're being relocated as preparation. Sign number 3. Things that used to break you don't hit the same anymore. You know exactly what I'm talking about. A comment that would have destroyed your entire week. A look from someone that used to send you spiraling. A situation that had the power to collapse you completely. And recently it came. And you stood there, almost waiting for the devastation. And it didn't come. You thought, that would have shattered me before. Now it just doesn't. That is not indifference. That is not numbness. That is Romans 5:4 walking out loud in your life. Tribulation produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character. And character produces hope. The trials didn't harden you. They refined you. There is a difference between a person who feels nothing and a person who has been built beyond the reach of old weapons. Sign number 4. You are having sudden flashes of clarity about people, about priorities, about what matters and what never did. Conversations you've been avoiding suddenly feel necessary. Relationships you've been clinging to suddenly feel finished. Dreams you buried 20 years ago are rising back to the surface, and they no longer feel foolish, they feel urgent. This is not a midlife crisis. This is not confusion. This is divine illumination. John 8:32. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Freedom doesn't always feel like celebration. Sometimes it feels like the jarring, unsettling, clarifying shock of finally seeing clearly after years of blurred vision. Sign number 5. You have become more serious about purpose. The noise that used to distract you, the gossip, the drama, the small talk that filled hours without feeding your soul, it no longer satisfies you. You find yourself pulling back from it, not out of arrogance, out of hunger. Something in you is starving for meaning, for assignment, for the sense that your days are counting towards something. Ephesians 2:10 says, "You were created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared in advance for you to walk in." He prepared them in advance. That means, right now your assignment is not ahead of you in the distance. It is beneath your feet, waiting for you to step into it. Sign number 6. Silence feels different. It used to feel like punishment, like abandonment, like God turned away and left the room. You would fill every quiet moment with noise, with busyness, with anything to avoid sitting in what felt like divine absence. But recently the silence changed. It feels less like a void and more like a presence. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. The be still comes before the knowing. God does not shout his deepest truths over your noise. He waits until you are quiet enough to receive them. And the fact that silence no longer terrifies you, that means you have finally become still enough to hear. Sign number 7. You need less from people, less approval, less validation, less reassurance that you're enough, that you're on the right path, that you matter. Something has settled inside you that used to require constant outside confirmation. This is not pride. This is foundation. Isaiah 30:15 inches. Quietness and confidence shall be your strength. Confidence, rooted in God, does not need an audience. It does not need applause. It stands alone in a room, and it is enough. Now hear me. If you recognized yourself in any of those 7 signs, if even 3 of them made you pause and say, "That's me," then one terrifying, beautiful, irreversible truth follows. The old version of you is not coming back. She is gone. He is gone. That person who needed the chaos, who survived on anxiety, who confused suffering with purpose, they are finished. God did not patch the old version. He completed a new one. You are not in recovery anymore. You are in emergence. Which sign hit you hardest? Put the number in the comments right now. I want to know which one God used to confirm this to you, because what I'm about to show you next is the one thing that still stands between you and fully walking into what's been prepared, and most people never see it coming. Now I need you to stay with me, because this is the part most people aren't ready to hear. You made it through the season, you survived it, and that's real, that's worth honoring. But here's the thing that nobody talks about in the aftermath of survival, the version of you that made it through. That version had a job, and that job is finished. Let me say it plainly, chosen one. The old you is gone, not weakened, not resting, not on sabbatical, gone. And I know that lands hard, because that old version wasn't a bad person. That old version was faithful. That old version got up every single morning when every single reason said, "Stay down." That old version smiled through grief nobody saw. That old version absorbed pain quietly, carried everyone else's weight silently, kept the household running on empty, kept the faith burning on fumes. That version of you was extraordinary. But let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to the bone. Who taught you that shrinking was survival? Who taught you that you had to over-explain yourself just to be heard? Who taught you that permission had to be earned before you could take up space? Who told you that your needs were the last item on the list, and that's just the way it is? Who convinced you that carrying everybody else's weight was love, when really, beloved, it was disappearing? That old version of you was built for one specific season, built to survive a specific kind of warfare, built to carry a specific weight until heaven said enough. And heaven has said enough. Isaiah 43:18 says it with unmistakable authority. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. And immediately God follows with verse 19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Do you not perceive it? God is not asking you to honor the old season. He is asking you to release it. There is a difference between honoring your past and being handcuffed to it. Think about a winter coat. It served you well. It kept you warm through nights that would have frozen a lesser soul. but you cannot wear it in July. You cannot carry it into every season just because it saved you in one. The coat doesn't fit where you're going, and the person who wore that coat, that version of you, doesn't fit where you're going either. 2 Corinthians 5:17 declares it without apology. The old has gone, the new is here. Not coming, not almost here, here. This is the grief nobody prepares you for. We celebrate the breakthrough, we shout about the open door, but nobody sits with you in the quiet moment when you realize you have to leave a version of yourself on the other side of that door. So let me sit with you here for a moment. That version of you who learned to be invisible to keep the peace, honor her. That version of you who swallowed your voice so others could speak, honor him. That version who cried in private so no one would worry, honor them. They endured what most people never could. They carried what most people would have dropped. They stayed when everything in them wanted to run. Honor that person. And then, with love and with gratitude and with your whole heart, let them go. Because Ecclesiastes 3 says there is a time to plant and there is a time to uproot what was planted. Both are holy acts. Both require courage. But uprooting requires something planting never did. It requires you to trust that the ground you're leaving was never meant to be permanent. The pain of this season did not just pass through your life. It passed through your identity, and it left you permanently, irreversibly altered. You cannot go back into that cocoon. It has already split open. You cannot return to that room. Heaven sealed the door. You cannot wear that old skin. It has already shed. The bridge is crossed. And beloved, it burned behind you, not by accident, by design. So right now, if you've been secretly trying to find your way back to who you were before the loss, before the grief, before the season that nearly broke you, I need you to hear this with every cell in your body. That way is closed. And it was closed by the hand of God, not as punishment, as promotion. Say it out loud if you need to, even if your voice shakes, even if tears come with it. I honor who I was, but I cannot go back. Say it like you mean it, because your future is listening. The old self survived by shrinking. What's coming requires you to expand. The old self waited for permission. What's coming requires you to move. The old self carried what belonged to everyone else. What's coming requires you to finally carry what belongs to you. And that brings us to the question that's been building beneath everything I've said. If that old version is gone, truly gone, then who, exactly, have you become? Because the season didn't just end. It deposited something inside you that wasn't there before. And in the next section, we are going to name it. Every single thing this season forged inside you, we are going to call it by name. Because what was built in the dark deserves to be seen in the light. Let me tell you what nobody told you while you were going through it. Nobody sat beside you and said, "What's happening to you right now is not destruction. It is construction." Nobody held your hand at 3 a.m. and whispered, "Every single thing being stripped away from you is making room for something that cannot be taken." And so you carried it alone. You carried the weight of seasons that had no name, no explanation, no visible end. You carried grief that didn't fit neatly into any category. You carried a kind of pain that doesn't show up on any doctor's chart, but lives in the chest like a stone that won't move. I need to say something clearly before we go any further. This should not have happened lightly. What you went through was real. It was heavy. It was hard. And I will never stand here and dress your suffering up in pretty language and call it a gift without first honoring the cost. But here is the truth that will change everything you believed about those years. God refused to let it be wasted. Not one night, not one tear, not one moment when you sat in silence wondering if he could even hear you. He heard every single word. And while you thought nothing was happening, He was building. Think about steel. You do not forge steel in comfort. You forge it in fire so intense that everything weak burns away, and what remains is something no force on earth can bend. That's not poetry. That's physics. And that is exactly what happened inside your soul during the hardest years of your life. Think about an oak tree shaped by relentless wind. Every storm that hits it forces its root system deeper, wider, further underground, invisible growth that no one applauds, no one photographs, no one sees. Until the day the storm comes that levels everything around it, and the oak tree is still standing, unmoved, unshaken, because the wind that people thought was destroying it was actually finishing it. That oak tree is you, and beloved, you are still standing. Now let me tell you exactly what was forged in you, because you need to know what you're carrying. The first thing built in you was discernment, not the shallow kind that reads a room, the kind that reads a spirit, the kind that Job received in Job 42:5 when he said, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." Suffering gave Job a direct encounter with God that no comfortable theology could have produced. You have that now. You can tell the difference between a person who is genuinely hurting and a person who is performing. You can sense when something is wrong before a word is spoken. That is not a personality trait. That is a spiritual gift, and suffering was the price of admission. The second thing built in you was compassion with authority. Not sympathy, that's cheap. Compassion that gets down in the pit with someone and says, "I know this place, and I know the way out." Joseph could govern Egypt with wisdom and mercy because he had been unjustly imprisoned in it. He didn't just have power, he had perspective, and you now carry the same thing. You have been to places in your spirit that most people only read about, and that gives you authority to speak into those places in someone else's life. The third thing built in you is an unshakable inner foundation, a stone foundation beneath a house that no storm can move. Psalm 18:2 declares, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer." David did not write that from a palace. He wrote it from a cave. He wrote it while running for his life from a king who wanted him dead. The wilderness did not take the crown from David. The wilderness prepared him to wear it. Every valley he crossed, every night he hid, every betrayal he survived. It was deepening the root system of a man who would one day need to carry a kingdom. You have been given kingly depth before your crown, and that crown is closer than you think. What else was built in you? Emotional sobriety. Not emotional numbness that is damage. Emotional sobriety means you are no longer controlled by every storm that passes through. You can feel deeply without being destroyed by what you feel. You have learned to grieve without drowning, to hope without being reckless, to trust without being naive. That is rare. That is gold. And finally, this one matters most. You were given the ability to stand without applause. Do you understand how powerful that is? Most people cannot function without validation. They need the likes, the praise, the recognition, the nod. But you went through seasons where nobody saw, nobody clapped, nobody called. And you kept going anyway. You chose God in the dark when no one was watching. That kind of faithfulness is what heaven builds empires on. Here is what the enemy never wanted you to understand. You did not come out of that season empty-handed. You came out carrying weight, wisdom, and authority. And oil, the kind that only flows from crushing, is now running through your spirit. If this message is strengthening you, subscribe and stay connected. There are some messages you don't just listen to once you return to them when God is rebuilding your mind. And type in the comments right now, "It was not wasted," because that is the declaration hell never wanted to hear from your mouth. You have been forged, you have been formed, you have been finished. And the question now is not what did the suffering cost you. The question is, do you know what it purchased? Because what God built in you during that season was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to be released. And what happens when it is released is what we need to talk about next. Let me ask you something that might sting. How many times have you woken up and thought, here we go again, the same fear, the same heaviness, the same war wearing a slightly different face? And somewhere deep in your chest, the most exhausting question a human being can carry, is this ever going to end, or am I just going in circles? I need to answer that question tonight, definitively, permanently. You are not in a circle, you are at a conclusion. But let me be precise, because this truth deserves precision. This does not mean life will never test you again. God never promised you a life without storms. What He promised was something far more powerful. He promised that you would never again be the same unformed version of yourself standing in that storm. That is the difference between a test and a repeat. And what you just survived was a test, not a loop, a test. And beloved, you passed. Here is why you will never go back. Reason 1. The lesson is complete. God is not a teacher who keeps you in the same grade after you've mastered the material. When the Israelites finally crossed the Jordan after 40 years in the wilderness, God didn't send them back to wander again. Joshua 3:17 says they crossed on dry ground, firm footing, forward movement, no return. That wilderness had a purpose, but the purpose was complete. Think about what that season taught you. It taught you that you could survive what you were certain would kill you. It taught you that God's silence is not God's absence. It taught you that you are stronger than your worst night, deeper than your deepest fear, and more anchored than the storm gave you credit for. You didn't just endure that season, you graduated from it. And God does not keep reteaching a lesson that has already become nature. What you learned in that furnace is now in your bones. You don't have to go back into the fire to learn it again. The metal has already been purified. The furnace has already done its work. Reason 2. The foundation is set. Chosen one, you need to understand what was actually happening underneath all that pain. While you were barely holding on, God was building. Jesus said it plainly in Matthew 7:24. The man who builds on rock weathers the storm and does not fall. He doesn't say the storm doesn't come. He says the house doesn't move. That season, that was the excavation. That was God digging down past the surface of who you used to be, past the performance, past the pretending, past the version of you that needed other people's approval to feel worthy, and pouring a foundation so deep, so permanent, that nothing coming next will be able to shake it. You know how you know the foundation is set? You're still here. After everything that came against you, the diagnosis, the betrayal, the silence, the grief, the days when getting out of bed required every ounce of faith you had, you are still here. Still breathing, still believing. That is not survival. That is confirmation. The foundation is set, which means the building can begin. Reason 3. Your response system has permanently changed. This is the one that will shock you, because it's already happening inside you, and you may not have noticed yet. You respond differently now. The thing that used to send you into a spiral of fear, you feel it, and you don't collapse. The person who used to be able to unravel you with one comment, you look at them differently now. The situation that would have stolen your sleep 2 years ago, you pray over it and you rest. That's not coincidence, that's transformation. Romans 5:4 calls it proven character. That word in the original Greek dokime means something that has been tested, examined, and declared genuine, like gold that has gone through fire and come out the other side. Not just endured, proven. Your nervous system has been recalibrated by God Himself. Your spiritual reflexes are different. You've learned to reach for prayer before panic, You've learned to choose faith before fear gets a full sentence out. You've learned to stand in the middle of a storm and know deeply, unshakably, know that God has never once let you fall. You cannot unlearn that. You cannot go back to who you were before you knew what you now know. That room of surgery, you will never have to enter it again. That particular breaking process, it is no longer necessary because what it was meant to produce, it already produced. In you, right now. The chapter is not fading, it is closed. So what now? If the season is over, what begins next? Because every ending in God creates a new responsibility. Every graduation creates a new assignment. Every crossing of the Jordan leads to a land that must be possessed. And that, beloved, is exactly where we are headed next. If you receive this by faith, write in the comments right now, I will not repeat this season. Not because the road ahead is easy, but because the person walking it has already been proven. I need you to stay with me right now. Because what I'm about to show you is not a Bible story. It is your story. You've heard the name Joseph 1,000 times. In Sunday school, from the pulpit, on greeting cards. But I'm going to ask you to forget every soft, sanitized version you've ever been handed, because what actually happened to this man was brutal. And the reason God put it in Scripture wasn't to inspire you from a distance. It was to explain your life from the inside. Joseph was 17 years old when heaven gave him the dream. 17. Full of fire, full of faith, full of absolute certainty that God had something magnificent waiting for him. And then his own brothers looked him in the eye, grabbed him by the coat, and threw him into a pit. Not an enemy, not a stranger, his family. Can I ask you something that may cut deeper than you're ready for? Have you ever been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to carry you? Have you ever been thrown into a pit by hands that were supposed to hold you up? You know what that pit smelled like? Dust, darkness. The sound of his brothers eating bread 20 feet above him while he screamed. Genesis 37-24 tells us there was no water in it. Just dry stone, just silence. Just a 17-year-old boy with a God-given dream lying at the bottom of a hole, wondering if heaven had already forgotten his name. And then it got worse. He was sold. 20 pieces of silver, the price of a slave. Carried to Egypt in chains, stripped of his identity, stripped of his father's house, stripped of everything that told him who he was. Then came Potiphar's house, and just when it looked like God was finally rebuilding something, a false accusation shattered it again. Falsely accused, publicly disgraced, thrown into prison for a crime he never committed. And then the cruelest part of all forgotten. The cupbearer walked out of prison and never looked back. 2 full years of silence. 2 years of Joseph waking up every single morning in a cell, holding a dream that must have felt like a cruel joke. Here is the question nobody asks. What was God doing in all that silence? Because here is the truth that will reframe every painful year of your life. The pit was not a detour from the palace. The pit was the only road that led there. Think about what Joseph needed to run an empire. He needed to understand suffering so he could govern with compassion. He needed to understand injustice so he could lead without corruption. He needed to understand what it felt like to be forgotten so he would never forget the people under his authority. He needed to learn how to interpret darkness, because when Pharaoh's dream shook an entire kingdom and no one could explain it, Joseph was the only man alive qualified to speak. The prison didn't delay his promotion. The prison built the man who could handle it. And now, I need you to stop. And I need you to ask yourself this question honestly. What if your hidden years were not wasted years? What if your obscurity was protection? What if the promotion that never came at 50 was God shielding you from a weight your character wasn't yet built to carry? What if what broke your heart also enlarged your capacity? There is an elevator hidden inside every prison shaft. But only the ones who stayed in the darkness long enough discover it. You went through a season nobody fully understood. You sat in rooms where your pain was too deep to explain. You carried losses that didn't have names. You prayed prayers that came back with silence. And somewhere in that silence, you thought God had moved on. You thought the dream was dead. But beloved, God was writing destiny in invisible ink, and invisible ink only appears when heat is applied. Genesis 50-20. Burn it into your memory. Joseph looks at the very brothers who threw him into a pit, who sold him, who let his father grieve for 20 years, and he says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Not just good for Joseph, good for an entire nation. The delay saved millions of lives. The prison produced a prime minister. The pit forged a patriarch. The place you thought disqualified you, that failure, that disgrace, that season you never speak about, may be the very place that trained you for everything God is about to hand you. You don't graduate from the palace. You graduate from the pit. And now we arrive at the final question, the one that changes everything. What must you do now that it is over? Share this with someone who is still trying to understand why God allowed their hidden years. Someone who needs to know that the silence was not punishment, it was preparation. And the preparation is finished, because the elevation is next. Let me ask you something that might sting. You made it out. The season ended. Heaven confirmed it. But here is the question nobody's asking you right now. Why are you still walking like you're in it? Watch the soldier who comes home from war. The battle is over. He's back on American soil, safe, free. But he still flinches at loud sounds. He still scans every room when he walks in. He still sleeps with one eye open, not because the enemy is still out there, but because the war got inside him, and nobody told him that surviving the battle is only half the victory. The other half is learning how to live without it. That is exactly where you are right now, beloved. The storm passed, but you never stopped bracing for the next one. Think about the person who just walked out of the hospital after months of pain. The doctors cleared them. The tests came back clean, but they still move carefully, still hesitant, still half expecting their body to betray them again. The diagnosis is gone, but the posture of sickness stayed behind like a shadow that forgot to leave. Or think about a house. It was rebuilt after the flood. New walls, new floors, new foundation. But whoever rebuilt it left the windows boarded up, because somewhere in the fear, they forgot that the storm was over. The house looks restored on the outside, but it's still living in darkness inside. That's not a building problem. That's a belief problem, and chosen one with love, with full respect for everything you survived that might be your problem right now. Paul wrote it plainly in Philippians 3:13, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. He didn't say slowly releasing, he said forgetting, because some things you don't process your way out of. You decide your way out of. So, here are the 5 posture shifts that this new season is demanding from you right now, not eventually. First, stop expecting constant collapse. You have spent so long waiting for the next bad thing that you have started calling it wisdom. It is not wisdom. It is trauma, wearing a spiritual suit. Not every silence is abandonment. Not every closed door is rejection. Not every quiet season is a curse. Isaiah 26:3 says, God keeps in perfect peace the one whose mind stays fixed on him. Fixed. Not scanning, not bracing, fixed. Second, stop introducing yourself through old pain. The moment you meet someone new and the first thing out of your mouth is the story of what broke you, you are still living at your old address. Your wound is not your name. Your diagnosis is not your identity. Your loss is not your legacy. You are more than the hardest thing that ever happened to you. Third, stop clinging to relationships that belong to the old season. Some connections were assigned to the wilderness, not the promised land. And here is the controversial truth nobody wants to say out loud. Some people in your life are most comfortable with the suffering version of you, because your breakthrough disturbs the agreement they made with your limitation. When Lazarus walked out of that tomb, not everyone celebrated. Some people had already made peace with his grave. Walk out anyway. Fourth, start honoring your inner peace as sacred. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is a spiritual authority that God has placed inside you, and you have been treating it like a luxury you cannot afford. Romans 15:13 calls it the God of hope, filling you with joy and peace. That is not a feeling. That is a presence. Guard it. Stop letting people, conversations, and news cycles trespass on what God has consecrated in you. Fifth, start moving with quiet confidence, not survival. Fear. Fear moves fast, loud, and reactive. Confidence moves steady. You have been through enough to know that God does not lose, so stop running like someone who doesn't know how the story ends. Here is the hardest truth of this entire message. Trauma outlasts the event. The storm can be completely gone and still be living in your posture, your breathing, your expectations, your spiritual imagination. Healing is not just emotional. It is physical. It is neurological. It is the retraining of a body that learned to survive, finally learning that it is allowed to live. You entered the new land, but you are still eating manna, still walking in wilderness patterns, still thinking like someone who might have to go back. You are not going back. This week, not next month, not when you feel ready, not when everything lines up perfectly this week. Do one thing the old version of you would have been too afraid to do. Make that phone call. Start that thing. Say yes to that invitation. Let your life start agreeing with what God has already finished. Because here is the word I need to leave burning in your chest as we move into what comes next. Do not drag funeral clothes into a resurrection season. The grave could not hold Jesus, and it cannot hold your future either. But what I am about to show you next will reveal something even deeper, why the very things you lost in that last season were not taken from you. They were cleared away, and what God is building in that empty space will leave you speechless. Let me tell you what actually happened to you, not what it looked like from the outside, not the version you told people when they asked if you were okay. The real version, the one that only you and God know in its full weight. You were seen. Every single night you couldn't sleep, you were seen. Every morning you got up and performed strength you didn't have, you were seen. The grief you carried in your body like a stone nobody else could feel, God saw it. The prayers you whispered in empty rooms that seemed to evaporate before they hit the ceiling, every one of them was heard, logged, and answered in ways you haven't fully witnessed yet. Your suffering had meaning. It was not random. It was not punishment. It was not God forgetting your address. What was happening underneath the pain, underneath the silence, underneath the confusion, was construction. Real, permanent, sacred construction. The kind that doesn't show on the surface until the building is complete. And now, beloved, look at where you are standing. The chapter is closed. The old posture is gone. The person who walked into that season and the person standing on the other side of it are not the same. Something in you has been permanently altered, not broken, not diminished, refined. You made it. You did not lose your mind, though you came close enough to taste the edge of it. You were not forgotten, though the silence was long enough to make you wonder. You were not being punished, though the weight felt exactly like consequence. You were being built, brick by brick, in the dark, by hands you couldn't see. And what broke around you built something deeper within you. And what is finished, what God has sealed, will not be reopened by fear, not by regret, not by the enemy, not by another hard season that tries to rhyme with this one. Nahum 1-9 settled it. Affliction shall not rise up a second time. This is not a chapter that restarts. This is a chapter that ends. Isaiah 43:18-19 says it plainly. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. God is not asking you to pretend the past didn't happen. He is commanding your eyes forward, because what He is building ahead of you requires a posture that the old season was never meant to hold. Now receive this prayer. Every word of it is for you. Father God, I come before you right now carrying every soul who has stayed with this message until this moment. Lord, you know the exact weight they have been carrying. You know the specific shape of their exhaustion. You know the names of the people who hurt them, the years that felt wasted, the dreams that got buried before they ever got to bloom. So right now, heal their nervous system. Let peace settle into the places where anxiety has lived so long it started to feel like personality. Release them from the dread of waking up expecting bad news. Heal the silent grief they have carried so quietly that even the people closest to them never knew it was there. Give them the courage, God. Give them real courage to embrace what comes next without bracing for it to collapse. Protect them from returning to what you have already ended. Seal the door behind this season with the authority that only heaven carries. Let no fear, no familiar spirit, no old pattern find its way back in. Bless their mind. Let clarity return where confusion reigned. Bless their body. Let strength rise in bones that carried too much for too long. Bless their home. Let peace become the atmosphere that greets them every single morning. Bless their purpose. Let the wisdom they earned through suffering become a voice that changes rooms, redirects lives, and carries your authority into places only they can reach. And bless their remaining years. Lord, every single one of them, not as a slow fade, but as the fullest, most fruitful chapters of a life that you never once stopped writing. In the name of Jesus, Amen. Now hear this commission and receive it without flinching. Walk lighter. You have earned the right to put down what you were never designed to carry forever. Stop apologizing for what suffering matured in you. Your depth is not a burden to other people, it is a gift. Let peace become your new evidence that God is with you. Not performance, not perfection, peace. Let wisdom become your new voice, not the loudest voice in the room, but the one people remember when they drive home. And live the rest of your life from formedness, not fear. From what God built in you, not from what tried to break you. If this message spoke to something inside you that hasn't been reached in a long time, type "I receive the ending" in the comments right now. Not as a ritual, as a declaration that you are stepping fully through the door. Subscribe if you want messages that go into the hidden places people rarely talk about, the rooms inside you that most sermons never enter. And share this with someone who is still in the middle of a season they cannot see the end of. Be the voice that tells them, it doesn't last forever. God doesn't leave construction unfinished. Congratulations, chosen one. The storm may have marked you, but it did not get to keep you. The season is over, and the rest of your life will not be built around what nearly destroyed you, but around what God built in you while you survived it.